So we are very happy to have here Jens Stecker from Mercato. If you are following online, you can raise your hand if you have pressing questions. Otherwise, you can write in the chat, and we will raise it to the speaker at the end of the talk. This webinar is under the umbrella of Just, a European project for advancing the understanding of challenges, policy options, and measures which need to adjust European transition. So we'll not steal more of your time. The floor is yours. You have an hour, so it's in for 3:70.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Very happy to be here. Oh, here we go. I was supposed to talk more about the Just project. No.
No, but
Okay.
nice to look what the side is.
So, but I think
So-
you're shaking in wrong screen.
Okay, while you're setting this up and when you can start, so I'm very happy to be here. I'm presenting a project that I actually kind of already pitched, at least to Max and some others, the last time I was here, which was at the Just kickoff. So it's actually quite coming nicely together that this is now an Just seminar. So it's a paper that I'm doing together with Theo Kong from Wageningen, Jakob Edenhofer from Oxford, Thomas Stern and Jens Weber from Gothenburg. And we called it "The Times That Are Changing: How Political Attitudes Change with Energy Prices, Evidence from Germany." And what this paper actually is about, that we try to find evidence whether or not kind of the energy price hikes in Germany, followed by the Russian invasion to Ukraine, have actually, in a causal way, cliffhanger.
Try again.
Caused this. So what you see is the national parliament voting intention in Germany for the last 4 years, starting after the last federal election, which was in 2021. Then you have the Russian invasion, and what we are interested in looking at is that blue line, which is the AfD, right-wing populist, increasing extremist party. And this is not me saying this, but it's the German kind of secret service saying that, basically labeling or classifying parts of this party in some states as the right-wing extremist party with secure evidence. So this party had about 10% in the last elections. It remained at about 10% after the invasion, but you can see that in subsequent times, it actually went up to a maximum of 23%. It came down afterwards after a huge scandal. So they were caught kind of having a secret meeting where they kind of tried to think of remigrating foreigners, like not foreigners, actually Germans who are somehow of German origin, and this kind of gave their popularity a little bit of a blast. There were mass demonstrations in 2024, but arguably also this is when energy prices, what we are interested in, had already then come down. So we are maybe kind of in a different narrative again. So when it comes to energy prices, I think most of you are aware of this, but still to give you some evidence. So the Russian energy invasion happened February 22, and following this, we have seen kind of consumer energy prices for during household, for major fuels and electricity going up. And also the issue attention has kind of changed towards topics that are related to energy prices and high prices in general. So this upper graph basically shows you over a long time frame actually what is the most important problem in Germany currently. So you see in the early 2000s unemployment. Then Germany didn't have any problems for a long time, guys. And then basically we had the war, and with the war basically costs, wages and prices which became highly attentive. And when it comes to kind of topics, then we had kind of a peak of refugees, integration of refugees in the 2015. Then obviously the coronavirus during the pandemic, and then basically kind of what peak was kind of energy supply, climate around the integration, and later kind of the entire topic of immigration peaked again. So arguably, kind of one could say there is at least some form of correlation. So what happened basically to this? So we see, okay, there was a situation, there was kind of a huge increase in energy prices. So the German government, what did they do? The German government reacted to that with a more or less unprecedented kind of reaction in terms of trying to cushion these high energy prices, both for industry and households. So they earmarked more than 150 billion euros, so about 4% of GDP, to relieve firms and households. Most of this arguably went to firms, but still about like 25 to 30 billion went directly to households. And I think it is interesting to look a little bit into how exactly they did that. So you see that kind of 65%, and I not necessarily want to go into all the various packages that the German government, that were fierce discussions also within academia, within the German economist crowds, etc., how to kind of organize those relief packages. But I would say that by and large, the German government followed the economics textbook. So they the prices, so there were no direct price subsidies, even though you see that here. But like basically what they did is they cut the feed-in tariff, which was before basically directly paid by the household. So it was an additional levy on your electricity bill, which was cut. So indirectly kind of a price subsidy, but there was no, like, for example, compared to Spain, there was no direct intervention of energy prices. What they did, however, was that they kind of organized a lot of these nice German words, as you can see. We now do kind of German teaching, like Energiepreispauschale and Heizkostenzuschuss, etc. So I actually, before the seminar, I asked Johannes, maybe you could now do some energizing. No, what Zuschuss and Pauschale and all of this means is actually transfers. There was basically an lump sum transfer for energy prices. There was kind of an additional transfer for families. There was an additional transfer for living costs, etc. There were some kind of tricks in kind of grant and tax breaks, etc. So, but all of this basically was done. It kind of summed up to approximately 18 billion euros. And one thing that will become important later, like one of the main issues here, this energy price subsidy, was paid in November 2022 to all households, basically through the respective heating facilities. So basically what happened is that, we'll come to that in a second again, because it is really important also that now understand the identification strategy. In Germany, we only get a bill for our heating costs once a year. It's true for electricity and it's true for heating. And we pay kind of an installment payment, which is, let's say, settled once a year after you get your energy bill. You say, okay, now for the next bill, you pay a monthly fee on X. And this is kind of kept constant for the entire year. So this energy price transfer was organized in a way that the government paid 80% or so of your monthly installment payment that you paid over the last 6 or so So basically, it led to a lump sum payment to households, but it was not directly a payment, but it was cured basically by the cost, this installment payment, not paid. So it basically didn't have to pay the installment. When maybe final thing, when you kind of look into, my colleagues at MCC did that already back in 2002, if you look into the distributional effects, most of these kind of transfers were actually progressive, neutral, or neutral, so actually kind of socially balanced. Only one particular measure, which was kind of granting additional subsidies to commuters, is found to be reduced. So in this study, kind of we wanted to know if there a causal link between these kind of energy price increases and the increase of AfD support and also the underlying political attitudes. And to basically get to causality, of course, we try a couple of ingredients like having a clear identification, so a specific event. We think that we can check this box by the Russian invasion not actually being necessarily foreseen. I remember basically 2-3 days prior to the invasion, where at least in Germany, you say, yeah, this is all just a large military exercise that they're going to do, which also relates to the exogenality of the treatment. Of course, we have to control for confounding variables, and we need to somehow get to an individual treatment. And I will now tell you how we try to do that. So we collected a panel over the year, mainly over the year 2023. So 4 waves of panel data, with the same 2,000 German households, selected to represent the general population. Key determinants. First wave was in 2023, and the last wave was in 2024. Why this year? Because remember, we only get our kind of energy bill once a year. So all these energy price increases that we saw directly after the invasion, the households only saw directly in the bank accounts starting from January 2023, because then on the first household it's kind of not adaptation to the energy, right? So, and yeah, then we include in our survey very detailed questions, energy consumption, pricing, including expectations, of course, political party preferences, the underlying attitudes, like on all kinds of questions, xenophobia, trust in government, etc., and all kinds of social economic data. And our main hypothesis is, I think that's relatively straightforward, that those households that have experienced high energy prices are more likely to support the AfD. Yeah, just a few words on the kind of literature. So, of course, we know already that crisis, economic decline, and political alienation are significant drivers of right-wing backlash. Then there is actually evidence of more economic nationalism due to port shocks, aggressive bureaus, others, the US. And this is, I think, also important for our paper, that we already know that there's kind of some heterogeneity with respect to groups of the population. On the US, when it comes more to kind of energy and climate-related issues, there is some work on job losses that have significantly increased Republican vote shares, even though I think that is not a channel that is so relevant for us. But we do know that when it comes to more climate-related issues, and I think this is important again to link this back in the interpretation, is there anything kind of that we can learn from this also climate policy, which is not the climate. I also interested is that those kind of policies can boost the popularity of populist party again by Italo and then by it does not have actually done quite a nice study which is a bit similar to our scheme to electricity.
Just maybe a bit of context. What makes AfD so special to, so they can benefit from the price increase? Is it because they are right wing, because they are very extreme? Is it because they are in position? No, what's so special about them as a party?
Yeah. So one reason for the price increase in Germany was arguably a supply shock. So we didn't receive any more gas from Russia. So with the invasion, like basically the imports stopped. So you might know that we had a fierce debate, not only in Germany, but all over Europe with the two Nord Stream pipelines supplying directly from Russia. So in the moment that Russia invaded Ukraine, all of this was basically stopped. So the AfD basically is the only party in back then. There's a new party now, but this doesn't matter that much. Was the only party that said no one. So we basically keep up kind of the gas supply of Russia. They still say that basically one of their main kind of energy policy demands kind of lift the sanctions and start again with importing Russian gas. This is one thing on the, if you like, on the conflict. But then I think there is another issue which becomes important, that kind of the AfD, as most right-wing populist parties, is the party that kind of lives a lot on kind of seeding distrust with the EVs, with the government, with the liberal democracy itself. So not only like immigration is kind of the core topic, but they kind of I would say they oppose the what they call the system or the old parties. Is that kind of absolutely?
Because they are, because they are anti-establishment.
They are very much anti-establishment and clearly
So against the incumbent.
say again, yes.
Because they are the opposition, essentially. Actually,
I mean, they are not only the opposition, but
So-
they are opposing the entire, basically.
yeah, I was thinking like, so you have energy price increase, so why do I shift my voting preferences? Because, okay, I blame the incumbent party, so I shift my support towards the opposition.
Yeah.
In this case, I guess, the fact that they had, they didn't want to ban.
And they also, in this very concrete case, they also promised kind of ease.
Yeah.
Like continue importing gas from Russia and oil. And this is a little side discussion. I think it's also important that you remind me as the background that there used to be a consensus in Germany to shut down nuclear power plant. And it happens that basically by coincidence, kind of this shutdown now fell exactly in this period. So this is a law that was actually decided by Angela Merkel's government back in 2011, but they just basically said, okay, by end of 2023, we shut down all the plants. So the AfD for a long time now has kind of challenged this and that, okay, we need more nuclear power, etc. Despite there was a broad kind of party consensus, including conservatives and more leftish parties to kind of shut them. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, there's all of this great literature that we can build up, but what we do not necessarily know is what exactly is the political backlash we should expect from energy price increases and why. And so this is to reemphasize this kind of the study period that we have been looking at. So I made a mistake before. So actually, the end of 2022 is the end of the billing period for 2021, right? So this is exactly the year when slowly people got their kind of adaptations covering the price increases in 2022. And by law, they have to be basically kind of be communicated until the 31st of December 2023. So we stopped that in early 2020. So we think that we cover with our study period quite well, like when people will be treated, and the vertical lines here indicate again when exactly we kind of conducted the different 4 waves. So these waves in total kind of have more than 8,000, a bit more than 8,000 data points. It includes important self-reported data on electricity and heating bills. It includes attitudes towards liberal democracy, xenophobia, towards redistribution, towards climate policies, towards the Russian-Ukrainian war. People on average took about 20 minutes to answer all of those questions, and we should be quite grateful that we kind of found 2,000 people who actually stick with us for this time. And then methodology, kind of we measured the effective rising energy costs and political attitudes using event study design. Just before going to that, I just wanted to show you some descriptive statistics over the waves. So what I should say is what I'm going to show you now are results on electricity costs. So we look for electricity and heating. Heating in Germany, it took us, I don't know, 4 months or so to understand exactly how the 5,000 shades of heating to price people on heating in Germany. First, there are all kinds of different possibilities, but electricity is arguably much clearer. And you can see that kind of the installment payments for electricity clearly went up by approximately 15%. The expectations of an increase in the electricity bill went down, which I think correlates well with this kind of people having been treated in that period. And also what you can see here, that the share of people who indicate that they will vote for the AfD increased from about 12% to a maximum of about 80%, falling again in the 4th wave, as I said, which is due to the fact that in January 2024, we had kind of a major scandal around AfD, which is likely that not anymore related to the election process. Yeah, just one, because it often comes up, those talks. If you look, one of you has spotted this income. No, in Germany, we do not have an average monthly income of 7,500 euros. It would be nice, but it's not the case. It is because we build the income groups. This is just simply saying which kind of income people are. And what is important to me here is that it is more or less kind of the same. So, yeah, I said that before. The nice thing is now, I think, that we can identify individuals that have been kind of treated highly idiosyncratically. So we basically can claim that with this survey we have a quasi-experimental interpretation, particular given this particularity of the German billings. So what we can do is, or what we should do, is that we basically have staggered treatments. Not all households receive their bills at the same time. Any given point, there are some that are treated, some that are not. So, and then there are all kinds of different treatments in our design. It's also something that we're currently struggling with. So, basically, in the last months, we have been doing, I don't know how many different robustness checks, and also checking all kinds of various treatments. What I will kind of show you here is really an increase in electricity costs finally increase or did not increase, but the results did not change qualitatively. But actually looking also at changes. And what we are still struggling with, should also say this, is to kind of in a comprehensive way include the heating cost treatments. Of course, for households it will matter how basically the combined increase of energy costs can place out. Yeah, that's something that is yeah. So we do basically apply the actual versus the status quo effect of our treatment. We apply for heterogeneous and dynamic effects, basically following color whites and other here, and well, kind of because it can kind of those treatments. And look into power notation if you like. I rather kind of prefer to look into this in a more qualitative way, because it kind of shows you basically what we do. We have a control group and a treatment group. T0 is basically when households are treated, and then we basically have households that are then that we can then follow over kind of 3 time steps. So because they have been treated in the first survey round, then we also have households that we can only follow over 2 time steps, and households that we can follow only over 1 time steps. And naturally, kind of what you would call N1, like only households only following 1 time step is larger than N2 is larger than 3. So I think this is just important to have in mind for the interpretation of this. Yeah, when it comes to the identification assumptions with regard to parallel trends and participation, they seem to hold. Please believe me for now. If you want to see the numbers, we can. So, before we look into the results, let me comment on a couple of issues regarding the identification. So, is it an exogenous shock? I would say yes. So what we are looking at is a pure supply shock, which is closely linked to the termination of the contracts with the Russian gas supply or the Russian energy supply, as I explained already to your question. So we have seen an increase in the consumption price, which is closely linked to the supply studies and these how basically much they were also individual reliant on the Russian gas. It's not the same for the kind of entire German market. So some also supply gas. Norway, always others might not be dependent on gas at all, etc. We have a relatively high liberalization in the German market, so households are totally free to kind of choose their supplier by themselves, and wouldn't standard on all suppliers in this exposure. Yeah, then we could argue that we need to also look into the question of expectations, and I think this is true. This might have a negative effect on the eventual increase, which I would argue was consistent with the general outside reaction to the energy concern, and less with the larger utilities idiosyncrasies. And then, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about it now. Well, first of all, first question. So your groups are households or treated groups at different times?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, are you concerned in any way about spillover effects between groups? So you have a group being treated first, are have an income shock in my energy bills. So I tend to be more units to prefer not if they. But now I influence other people who are not treated yet, because of course my political beliefs also depends on my peers, people I interact with, the media, etc., etc. So you might have this type of interactions with others.
Well, I'm not so much concerned for the identification, because people do not know their control group. I mean, the control group is recruited, if you say, from the entire survey and then match to people which show similar characteristics, if you like, but they are, which it's totally idiosyncratic who that is. So you might be treated, if you know EIEE, you get like totally upset, like, oh, it's like AFD will change it, and then EIEE say, you're right, but like for us it doesn't matter because like we don't kind of survey ads.
Because like if I am treated, she's still in control. When you're then
No, but she is not your control. Your Max might be your control, or like somebody, or Ellen, or like somebody you don't even know.
no, yes, exactly. The thing is what I'm trying to say is that if I have spillover between treatment and controls, even they don't know each other. Because you have, say some regions are affected, you have 50% of the people have in the region have an energy to update, and the influence is the other 50% of the region, or that emerges in the media, in public discourse in general. So you have it between the treatment.
Yeah, we control for the media channel. This is one of the things that we just did. This is why I have it present, and this is not significant difference. I mean, in theory, you might be right that there is kind of, let's say, an increasing narrative they are picking up, and like the media might kind of report on this, etc. So there might be some self-enforcement, etc. True, which would mean that kind of for later treatments, people might be more likely, more sensitive to the energy price.
Or less, because they've already been treated.
So
If I'm a late treated, I've already been treated by spillovers. So what you're measuring is actually smaller than what.
But like, I mean, econometrically, you would kind of be able to kind of measure this kind of survey around these effects, if you like.
Yeah, what I'm saying is maybe you're underestimating.
But that's true. But then exactly this would be my second point. That we underestimate the effects. So yeah, like I'm not so concerned about this. Yeah.
Can I ask you perhaps somewhat related question, which is I might also somewhat perhaps a related question, which I may have missed, that you have 2,000 people.
Yeah.
From where?
All of it.
So the issue of the spillover between the treated and the untreated, that seemed to me they will be more relevant in reasons where you second whole population.
I think through the media.
Yeah, I know, but we're still talking about 2,000 people in Germany. So my point being, perhaps it is a little bit of a less.
Not 2,000 people are treated. We have a lot of people in Germany are treated. You're not mentioning them.
No, like I see your point. Like I think the channel is more, as you said, it is maybe not about kind of the direct interaction, but also that kind of like over time the narrative might kind of be picked up more and people read about it more and reduce and more concerning things like this. This might be I agree. This might no, I think the direct channel, I would say. Also because what is interesting is like it happened, and actually this is anecdotal evidence, but it happened. I know that kind of people in my apartment building having more or less the same flat as I do, relatively similar kind of social strata, the same amount of kids, etc. They have been treated and we haven't. So even in the same house, and then now you could say, well, they might have been kind of poor to us, and then like when we were treated, we did, okay, this can happen. I agree with that. But again, like then I would say, in the end, I agree with you. This would only lead to an underestimation of the overall effect, which I would say, then this is an underestimation. Because we like as a sneak preview, we do find quite a significant effect. So it might even only be higher.
And if you have like say location, for example, you can do that times time fixed effects.
Yeah.
Then I increase the precision.
I just wanted to say that I think you should actually this is kind of this time.
At least so that the timing of receiving payment, which you are using for further designing, is driven by what?
It's idiosyncratic. It's driven by the utilities.
By utilities. It's a utility decision, and is it anyway correlated with, let's say, FD share baseline, or is it? Oh, it's really a choice. You know,
It-
why did they do before? I mean, what's
It's just like how those utilities work. So you get your kind of electricity. It also depends for electricity. It also often depends when exactly did you sign up with a certain utility. Let's say you have kind of signed up with a new utility 1st of March. Then you will get your bill the 28th of February next year.
Yeah.
And then like I might have kind of like my utilities 15th of June. And so this is, and for heating, it is basically again different because, well, for heating, you have extremely different kind of modes, but in all of those, you also have kind of this highly idiosyncratic kind of aspects that it really depends on the utility or kind of the administration of your department or when they exactly inform you about your costs to basically the costs and payment.
without any correlation.
There's
If you have a fixed effects by, say, land or regional unit. You know, you're
So
also,
that seems like it's even your original doing the same hours.
now we were asking, are we likely to,
Oh, yeah, of course.
yeah, what I can see, what like I think we haven't done, what we could do is that we kind of control for the kind of regional AFP share. So let's say we have this by district, right? Like so we know by district kind of how many people support the AFD, and then we could kind of control whether this effect is stronger in districts where the AFD is generally strong.
and I suppose you control by demographics?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, then. I mean, I think there is, I mean. It goes a little bit in your direction, right? Like, I mean, the control group is made of people who do not report a cost increase between January 23 and February 24. They could have been treated before, right? I mean, we asked that, but they might have forgotten. So, but again, I would say if that is the case, and again, more like underestimation of the treatment effect. And then, of course, we have self-reported data. I personally think that it is not possible to do it differently. Want to kind of do this kind of study because actually colleagues at MCC, sorry, tried it, and I mean, they get, of course, very detailed data on kind of when people were treated, etc., but they have no idea about the political kind of preferences of the individuals. So they can then they can somehow link it, of course, to the region, but this doesn't give you any clue of whether people actually like were treated actually also change their political views. So, and of course, we do a couple of measures to the potential quality errors. That's the exciting part. When looking to the results.
So on the reporting, you mean people do not report an increase in their bills?
Yeah, or like not the exact amount, they kind of have not realized that
Because if it's a classical error, then you have attenuation bias.
yeah, exactly. Like, for example, there are some people in the sample who report an increase every time. Like the way the market is structured, it is. I mean, it could theoretically be, but it is. So we exclude those people from the sample.
So it's not underreporting in the sense like I have an increase of 20% and I report the time. So that
This might also happen because, I mean, we do ask people to look for the actual bill and tell us what is written there. We have in the survey kind of an example of energy bill, how does it look like, what number are we interested, etc. But then we also tell them if you don't find it in reasonable time, just guess. And like only, I would have to look it up, but like only a percentage of people actually give us what is in the bill, they guess it. And this could of course be wrong.
individuals who, for example, maybe because they're disabled, the government pays all of their utility bills or something like this, and so the kind of never has actually experienced. Are there any of those individuals in your sample that you could use as a peer control group? Because they're never treated as a federal control.
I actually don't know whether yes, they are for sure. Like, was that's a good point. But we haven't asked people. Like we would have need to ask whether they like disabled people. I don't know, but there are people who are in kind of really getting transfers from the state at a certain level. Then I think the state takes over the utility costs. But I think we haven't asked whether they are in support. We could of course derive it from their income if it is lower than X, but the likelihood is high. But I don't know. Like, yeah, that's a good point. So let's look into the results. So basically, like I will now always show very similar graphs. So we see the share of AFT watches here. This is basically when kind of people have been treated, and this is basically then the periods after treatments. Remember what I have said before, that obviously there are fewer people here than there. So for the full sample, we don't find any. Well, we don't find significant results. We do find a slight increase in AFD voters, but we do not find so, however, we do basically find very significant results if we start kind of controlling for yeah.
I don't remember from the first chart, but is it these exactly also the time when AFP went up like a lot in Germany?
So
is this tracking, let's say, the general trend, or is it representative of the general?
no, I don't know whether it's like I have to check the data. I think we have to call for this, but remember that these results are really on individuals. Individuals that are treated or not treated. So and I mean, this is the question, right? Like if this is in parallel with whether this is kind of the reason why it went up or not. So yeah. So it is exactly, it is a period, yes, it is a period when it went up. And remember from our sample, I mean, maybe this is the even more relevant number than the kind of general number. It went up from 12 to 18%. So it was 12 here, 16, 18, 16. So if we split the sample in basically kind of reduce here the amount of money that people think the government wastes as a proxy for trust. And here we do find highly significant results. So if people already kind of mistrust the government, then this kind of or if they also kind of think that the government is spending money not wisely, then they also kind of are more prone to support the AFD after this shock, and actually to a huge amount. So to an average 5 percentage point increase in AFD, which would more or less explain the full increase control. And what I think is another really interesting result is the salience of transfers. This is also the reason why I spent so much time trying to explain how exactly the government transferred. And the reason in the sample we find that 60% of people respond to the question, have you received compensation from the government? The response is no. This cannot be, must be wrong. But remember, like one of the core mechanisms was that you didn't pay your installment payment in the month of November 2022. And the month of November in Germany is kind of a special month because everybody gets their kind of annual bonus, if you like. So we call it Christmas month. So not everybody gets it, but it's 80% or so of the population if you work. Yeah, if you are close to any kind of it's really widespread. So usually in November this money is paid, and I also from my personal kind of experience, we had more money in our account. We always had more in our account in November. So I mean, we knew that basically part of this was due to us not paying this installment this month, but it could have easily been kind of overseen. And it was overseen by 60% of the people, and those kind of for those actually kind of there was a very high and significant increase, and this increase kind of strengthened over time. So not necessarily visible in the first period after treatment, but getting stronger in the second. That was certain. We also then looked into kind of attitudes. So people who got shocked with electricity price increases kind of I don't know, it's a little bit confusing here. This is kind of anti-liberal democracy. So this attitudes against liberal democracy have increased. Not shown again is that the effect is strong for people who show everything that tax money is wasted. Then there is no clear kind of result for xenophobia. So we cannot see anything going on here. And why xenophobia? Because related to your question, AfD is, if you like, this is their trademark. They are a xenophobic, anti-immigration, anti-foreign party. So this is not necessarily a clear result, but there is kind of an increase of xenophobia for people who do not support the mainstream party. So the mainstream party is basically including the left party, the center left, center right, and the German Liberal Party, which is maybe a bit more closer to the libertarian party. So there is no significant effect on other attitudinal variables that we could identify. Final question that might be interesting is whether these effects will last. So if you look at today's polls, they have only shown basically results until June last year. Today, the AfD is again above 20%, so right close to their peak of 23%. The energy prices are lower than pre-pandemic. So why would we actually see kind of still high support for AfD if this is a challenge? So one kind of explanation is that voters might actually change their preferences after, well, in this kind of paper by Calendar and in JPE, basically they look after an election, but we argue it could of course also be after you kind of mentally made the shift to, okay, I support the AfD, then we might also kind of adapt your preferences or attitudes in this direction. And this is exactly what happens. This table is showing within respondent results. So of those people who kind of switched to AfD, and what happened then to their kind of attitudes regarding redistribution, regarding climate, regarding xenophobia, regarding support for Russia and anti-democracy. And let me highlight that kind of all of these are strong positions of AfD. So they are anti-distribution, anti-climate, they are xenophobic, they support Russia, they are anti-democracy, and you can see that at least for climate, xenophobia, and support for Russia, for those respondents who have kind of switched from a different party to AfD, over time, they also kind of become more likely to adapt to those attitudes that are closer to faith. And this is consistent with post-election polls. So this is a graph from German public television after the European election, asking people, why do people vote for the AfD? And if you ask all voters, basically 27% say because of the content, 67% say out of protest. And if you actually ask those people who voted for the AfD, it's swapped. So it's exactly the other way. So yeah, we think that what we have found, that kind of people get kind of triggered by this energy price change, they then start kind of supporting AfD as a mix of various reasons, but then kind of they stay there. So there's no easy hysteresis, if you like. So let me conclude. So we looked into kind of energy price shocks in Germany on the kind of voting intention on AfD. We think that we can show that the energy price shocks can increase anti-liberal xenophobic attitudes. We show that people who think that they do not benefit from government spending are more likely to support the AfD. We see that after people start supporting the AfD, they also adapt their political preferences accordingly. And this makes kind of people more likely to stick with the AfD, also when the living conditions improve, or in this case, energy prices come down. So, like beyond this paper, of course, we are always also looking into kind of the role of climate policies, and like price-based policies might have kind of a similar effect also in light of EU ETS 2 and related upcoming price increases. And yeah, this might actually also explain some of the reluctancy, at least that we observe. And it's getting very obvious now also in the current election campaign. Policy makers are really reluctant to support price-based policy. So that I thank you very much. You still have to adapt to my email address.
We take questions from the audience. No questions online for the moment. If you have questions, raise your hand or write them in the chat.
You showed that the different results for people who have lower passing volume too much. So similar results, I guess we have a measure of that we want to information or user life that scale or creating previous behavior, and also wondering if this can impact. And also wondering because we don't want to be able to a lot of people they say they are like me, they say they are moderate in the right thing, but then they look for significant. I just want
So sorry, I only got 50% of your question.
So for people who, because nobody identifies as why who are concerned somehow. We find that there is effects that find the past environment
I have to look it up. We do definitely find kind of severe differences in kind of which party people support, and in terms of all of these attitudes or kind of effects, but we also kind of find like people from all parties kind of switch to AfD. It's not that it's only kind of conservatives. So yeah, so and this kind of trust issue, I mean, people who vote more for, I don't know, the Greens or the Social Democrats, I have a slide somewhere in the front of this corporate can put together later. Like people who trust the government more in, for example, spending taxes wisely are more likely to vote Greens or something like that. This is for sure. But still, we also find people who have been voting for those parties to switch there.
We do better takeaways, like. So what is striking me is, so, I mean, so first of all, I think it would be nice to know what these 2,000 respondents are, just to get an idea, you know.
Who they are.
No, where, like, if you have a, you know, geographically located, I mean, just to understand the representation of different research.
Statistically represented.
Okay.
So this is really kind of like we work with Philander
Okay.
on this, and like this is basically really kind of like for like, I mean, you know how it works. You have to compromise on some, but like we didn't compromise on kind of in which federal state, urban, rural, and this is all statistical.
Yes, excellent. I don't even catch that it was designed specifically this way.
Yeah.
If it is, you should stress it when you say
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
because it's
No, maybe,
hard to
you
get
know,
something
like-
expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I kind of, you know,
But I think-
already.
But in terms of this, I
Internalize.
think what is really interesting here is that you and the fact that, you know, policymakers are less, are probably gonna be less prone or less disposed in terms of talking price policies. Actually, I mean, what this shows to me very strongly is that compensation doesn't work either. So whether you know, so. And then this goes back into the what type of policies would be effective in the sense that I think the bad result here is that even people who got the money back, they don't realize it. So perhaps there's something to be said about education, about communicating these benefits or what, I don't know. I know it's not something that is in your paper, but I think it's really striking that if you get compensated in I remember from the first slide, the textbook, you know, economics textbook, aligning the type of interventions, you actually don't see it. So this challenges some of the results of our profession, I think, that, you know.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. My personal take on it is, I mean, the government spent, I think in the end it was close to 200 billion euros. But they didn't have the 20 million euros to kind of really do an advertising campaign. So we didn't we didn't do this systematically, but I started to ask around like with friends, my family and friends of my parents, etc. Like, did you actually know how this worked? Did you see some advertisement, etc.? And then like 2 or 3 of my PhDs said, yeah, you know, there was this one poster like at Bahnhof Zoo in Berlin, like in the underground. It explained it exactly. There was no large scale kind of campaign. It was not everywhere on radio, on television, on X, or wherever you find people. That it was simply not done. And I think this is a huge warning to many governments. There might be governments that do much better on this. Like the German government, particularly under Chancellor Scholz, I would say is not necessarily known for being good.
Okay, but I would suggest that Germany is still a pretty decent benchmark as opposed to other countries. I'm just saying that in general. You know, but I think it's really a key takeaway because for it to actually work on efficiency grounds, it's a dollar spent on the subsidy plus the communication of the subsidy. This makes it easy.
Exactly, and look into the results, right, on the savings. Those who realized that they got compensated for them, basically, particularly over time, this effect totally vanishes, right? There is like a barely significant kind of effect in the first period afterwards, but then over time, basically, people seem to kind of go back to what you would have expected in the baseline.
Which, if I may, links a little bit in a loose way back to the idea of, distribution of
right.
Concerted justice versus participatory or any other kind of non-purely money-related justice principles that you can do, because this is a clear example of the top-down approach where perhaps it would be beneficial for the people, but they just either didn't realize it or they didn't value it as such a good thing. Perhaps they value something else. So that's I think, first comment, and then the second comment is that in any case, the fact that it doesn't go back when things change back, it's actually not very far away from what you find in most cases, asymmetric price effects. Prices go up much more than they go down. So, and the fact of moving one way does not necessarily revert back to the original. So I think there's an interesting parallel to look at the literature there. I don't know whether you can get any insights, or say something different. And then I think the third point is that it's really what would be really interesting if we partly perhaps answer this when you reply to Sylvia, which is do people from all trades switch to supporting the populist party? Because what it seemed to me is that here you're playing, I mean, my prior, and I may be totally wrong, is that you would be swinging the swing voters, the ones that are not entrenched. So if that's not the case, I think there's something to be said and commented there as well in a takeaways. I think it's an interesting point.
I have looked into this at the very beginning, actually, before all waves were in, so I would need to look into it again. But one thing that I remember from back then, which I found interesting, is that a lot of people, because remember, we are serving the entire population, so including the 20 to 30% of people who actually don't go and vote. And they switched from no party affiliation to AFD quite a bit. So the ones that you could argue are generally already lost, they don't care in one or the other direction. But with this price increase, they start to kind of support a particular, in this case, populist party. So it is also this reservoir that kind of the AFD can build up on without kind of like independent of the other parties. And from the other parties, I will.
Thanks. Apologies if I missed these 2 points during your presentation. First, I wonder whether you were able at some point to condition the responses on the income level and to see whether you observe some threshold effect. And second, which connects to partially one of the questions by Leon and another strand of the literature, I was not really able to get whether you can really claim it's just energy price or it's more generally inflation. And there is a literature basically evaluating the effects of inflation on anti-democratic movement, far rights, and this kind of events. Because it might be it was inflation driven by the end of the shock, but the problem is inflation. And I wonder whether there was a way to control for these or to once expressed.
On your second question, I would argue because we really look into the individual level, right? Like, and building a control group out of other individuals that also match their income level, etc., etc. I would argue that, I mean, I agree with, and probably people kind of mix up a lot of things, but kind of in terms of this trigger, kind of, have you seen an increase in your electricity price? I think this is relatively clearly linked to this. I mean, that kind of there is kind of that people are more sensitive to the issue, etc. There is general price increases. I agree. Also, I mean, what we haven't discussed up yet, we had an open question how people react to this. And of 2,000 people, I think 1,950 answered to this open question, and a lot of them with such a text. So we might have kind of, a selection bias. People who care for this also answered our questions. Work with the company, of course. I mean, people are selected in a way that they're statistically representative, but still might kind of survey those people who kind of care for this. People not take 20 minutes of that time to answer this question. But coming back to your questions, I mean, I think we cannot fully exclude it, but by design, by treatment design, I would be relatively confident that actually look into the specific kind of effect of electricity or energy price increases, because it is really kind of like this is when people start to get into this kind of. And Remind me of the first question again.
It was just about whether you were in.
Yeah.
And
Yes, we are, like, but remember that we also match on income into Ireland. But like, yeah, we can look at this. I wrote it down.
Yeah, I have a question about the table that you have. You mentioned that I assume there is we're talking about waves of the climate, right? Around all waves. These are not the times.
The waves are
Waves.
so this is only when people actually are treated as switch.
Okay.
So you refer to the table. And if it's
Yeah,
not
no,
possible,
it's that table that you have, like,
Yeah.
well, my question is more about these, you mentioned that these people are, have a higher income than the mean, so if you have, my question is if you have an idea of.
No.
So.
No.
Okay,
Like,
so
okay,
this-
now no, this was a misunderstanding. It was just I actually would need to look it up what it means. So we binned the incomes. So we looked into 0 to 700 euros monthly income, 700 to 1,000, 1,000 to 400. I don't know. I don't remember the exact bins, and I have to admit that actually when I prepared for the talk this morning, I realized that I didn't remember like how many bins we have. But I think it should be around 14 or maybe 12 or so. But so this is just saying like which bin they are. It doesn't tell you anything about the income. Like
I
I
remember something about, like, for example, yeah, no, maybe the range of the means, the number, because 7 is kind of a big number of means, like that, I mean, even if it is a big.
it is quite close to the median. Like I mean, we selected the people according to like, you know, we wanted this, and it like this box was checked. So we made sure that the survey was also represented on income and geography.
So you're comparing that basically this is kind of in general sample.
Yeah. I just highlighted this because it happened to me actually when I presented it at MCC, and it was like who is actually earning 7,000 euros here? But no, it has nothing to do with euros. It is just the bill. Exactly. You know, this is a German thing because we do a comma and not a point.
We mentioned that, did you do it for heating as well, and did you find similar or different things?
We're still struggling with the heating because with electricity, everybody basically just gets electricity with heating, and if people have gas in their apartment, gas for the entire apartment block, district heating based on gas, based on what have you, kind of. Then they have oil. Then they have there are still some people who have coal and wood. We have people who use electricity, and so on and so on. So it is really kind of different, like really complicated. Like it's if you look into the survey, kind of this question, how do you heat was complete? This was, I think, where we spent most of the time when designing this survey. But we did some preliminary analyses, and they look similar. I'm now currently what we are trying is to combine it, because I think what is relevant is the combined active signal. We will likely for the paper kind of do it as a customers check to see whether kind of like this is changing results, and it is not. Originally, we were hoping to do it for electricity and heating separately, but like for heating also kind of people seem to be kind of overwhelmed by like what they actually pay for it, because you get it, or usually you get it, depends again on if you kind of consume gas directly, then it's different. But if you usually you consume it through your apartment block administration, so to say. And then they kind of give you the bill together with heating, hot water, all kinds of utilities, waste management, etc. And then people obviously, like we find a lot of people who just gave some numbers.
We have been, throughout the time, we've
My presence is standing.
But do you want to quickly ask a question, maybe?
It's very quick. I just, since you mentioned that there is, fewer and fewer people in any way, but when you say it's representative, it's also in the third way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just. I'm sorry,
No, let's say, thanks a lot for joining in person and in line. See you for the next webinar.